We've all heard the stories of guys punching themselves in the face when they shoot a hinge release, so I made a vow that I would never own a hinge. So anyways, I bought a hinge. As I've progressed through my journey of trying to beat target panic, I've shot a number of different releases. Back in high school, when I started with a compound bow, I just had an index release. I didn't get any coaching or any real training, and what that ultimately ended up causing is a severe case of target panic. By the time I'd finished high school, my target panic was so bad that I put my bow down and I did not shoot any archery for 15 years. So when I got back to it, I decided I was going to try something different, and I picked up a thumb button. This is a True Ball T-Rex. And obviously that did not fix my target panic. I was still punching it, still grabby, still struggling. I shortly after that came across a really good price on a Carter Evolution, and I proceeded to shoot this exclusively for over a year. The Carter helped me work through my target panic, and I was able to go back to shooting a thumb button with great success. And anytime I start feeling like I'm getting a little grabby with this thing, I'll pull out the Evolution, I'll shoot it for a day or two, and that usually keeps me on track. A while back, I came across a release called the Wayland Hooker, and I was intrigued by a release that doesn't have any moving parts. You shoot this a lot like a hinge. It's still kind of a back tension style release, and I really struggled with this thing. I shot it initially, and I ended up putting it away for a few months because I did not shoot it well. I pulled it back out, I put some solid effort, and I got to the point where I was starting to see some decent consistency, but I was still seeing a lot of misses left and right. And I attribute that to the way the hook is designed, because the hook doesn't actually open and release the string. The string has to slide off the hook, and it has to slide sideways or laterally. And I feel like that's been causing my left and rights, because as you get to the anchor, your string's moving this way before it releases. So I had been thinking about a hinge. I'd been considering getting a hinge, and all of a sudden I saw a deal on a Scott Ascent, and I couldn't help myself, so I pulled the trigger and bought my first hinge. So why a hinge? Well, I shoot my thumb button really well. I've become very confident with it over the years. I've had this for over 5 years now. And one of the things I've noticed, though, is when I start getting into kind of high arrow counts for the day, I start getting tired, I start getting a little lazy, and I start getting a little punchy. And I figured out how to cheat this release, so I still get decent shots, but I know they're not breaking well. And so I wanted to try something that I felt was going to force me to stay on my game, even when I get into the high arrow counts. And that's where the hinge comes into play. Now, if you're one of those guys that has no idea how a hinge works, let me explain it to you, because honestly, I didn't really understand it either. So the idea of the hinge is this is the piece. This piece moves. This is the head, and then you've got the hook inside. And as you rotate the hinge, that's what allows the hook to open up. Well, if you look underneath there, there's that little tiny foot right there. Zoom. There we go. Well, what that does is it actually rides along the backside here. These are called the moons. So when you draw the bow, that foot is actually sitting down on those, and as you rotate the release, eventually it comes up to the edge here and falls off, and that's what allows that hook to open. That's the sear. That's how that trigger works, is that gets to that point right there, it allows that to fall off, and that opens. Now, the Scott Ascent is incredibly easy to set up if you follow the instructions. The first time I did it, I kind of thought I had it figured out, and I had to restart. So you've got a couple screws. You've got a lock screw on the bottom. You've got a set screw right here that locks the moons together, and then this is your micro drive. I'm not going to go through the detail here. I've got another video where I talk about how to set this up. Just know that being able to micro adjust the click and the fire is so easy, and it's super quick to get set up. So let's talk about the Scott Ascent. This is not a new release. They introduced this in 2018 or 2019. The thing that was new for this was this is the first time Scott had made a release that had an independently adjustable click and fire sear built into the release. Now, the Ascent is made out of all stainless steel, so it's got a little heft. It's a lot heavier in my hand than my aluminum releases. This is the large 3-finger. It fits my hand really, really well. I typically wear a size large glove, and this one fits in here just perfect. Well, I haven't punched myself in the face with this thing yet. Shooting the hooker for 6 months was a nice training for this. The thing I like about it is it's smoother, it's more stable, it feels more consistent. After only having this release for a week, I shot a couple rounds of Vegas, and I've now set my new personal best with this release. I'm sure those scores will continue to improve. The genius behind the adjustment system in the Ascent was so good that Scott has carried it over into their 2 newer Hinge releases. They also have the Scott Select, which is almost identical to this one, except it's made out of aluminum, and it's got an adjustable 3rd finger. There's also the Scott Fusion, which is a highly modular release, and it looks pretty neat. I really want one. Either way, they all use the same head design, and they all use the same adjustments, which makes it super slick and really easy to set up. Honestly, I'm kicking myself that I didn't buy one of these sooner. It has been an easy transition for me, and I'm really enjoying shooting this release. It's already become my go-to, whether I'm shooting my target bow or my hunting bow. This is the one I grab when I go outside. Now, for the detailed adjustment video, I'm going to put that right here. You can go watch, and it'll show you how to set this up so that it shoots exactly the way you want it to.